Bad news, you can't just pick whatever song you want to use for your podcast. You've got to be careful. If you use any copyrighted music without permission, it can get you thrown off platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And no one wants that to happen. Because if it does, you'll need to start again from scratch. Safe to say, it's not worth the risk. Automated copyright infringement detection systems, try saying that when you're drunk, are getting more sophisticated by the day. They'll come knocking at your door even if you've only used seconds of a track. Well, not literally, but you get the point. In short, this means no Adele anthems, no Billie Eilish bops, no Arctic Monkeys belters. In fact, no to practically every other artist or band you've ever heard of. Don't worry, because it's not a case of slim pickings. Take a tour with us to find the best free and paid sources for royalty-free music for podcasts.
But before we get into the video, do you know about Matchmaker.fm? It's a great tool for marketing yourself, your product, or your podcast. Find and book new guests for your show, and get yourself onto shows created by other podcasters around the world. Anyway, back to the video.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty, there is some legal ground that's important to cover first. Generally speaking, there's 3 types of music you're allowed to use in podcasts. One is Creative Commons music, a license that lets you use a piece of music free of charge and without permission, provided you credit the producer. Some licenses permit commercial use, others don't, but it's usually clearly labelled. So ensure you're reading any specific T's and C's carefully before using a track. Another is public domain music. When the original copyright holder kicks it, the music goes out of copyright and into the public domain after a certain amount of time. 70 years after the death is usually the benchmark, hence why a lot of classical music and hits from the 20s, 30s and 40s are now in the public domain. Side note, but a crucial one. If a modern artist records a cover of an old song and launches it into the public domain, they then hold the rights to that new rendition, meaning you can't use it without their permission first. Then there's also royalty-free music. Don't get too excited though, you'll still have to buy yourself a license in order to use most royalty-free music. But getting one does allow you to use the track in whatever way you want, depending on the duration specified in the terms, that is. If you're unsure on how to buy a license, here's how. One-off purchases allow you to buy a license to use one particular track. Most of these one-off purchases will give you a lifetime license that doesn't expire, but make sure to check the specified terms. Subscriptions are another great alternative, and there's plenty of new services which offer access to a major range of professionally produced music for a monthly subscription fee. Typically, the license lasts as long as the subscription is active. And don't worry about having to go back and remove music from your old episodes if you're no longer paying. For more info on music licensing for podcasts, check out our article on Podcast.co. Contrary to popular belief, some things in life are free, and that includes music for podcasts. In some cases, you'll have to credit the production, but you won't have to pay a single penny. Free music sites give you plenty of options to work with, which makes them ideal for a lower budget podcast. However, there are some drawbacks. For one, the production quality can sound amateurish on certain tracks, and the music libraries available aren't as extensive or as well organised in comparison to paid services. Some user interfaces even look as if they haven't been updated for years. This means that if you already have an idea of the type of track you want for your show, you might have a hard time finding something that suits. On the other hand, if you're not too fussy about finding the perfect song for your podcast, you'll have no problem getting the right one for you from our selection of free music sources. This includes our very own Keep Calm and Podcast playlist, which is free by the way, and features chilled house and mellow beats that'll leave your podcast sounding cooler than a Snoop Dogg audiobook. Of course, we're not the only free music resource available to you. Pixabay might already be familiar to some of you, as they're also a good resource for copyright-free images. Handily, they also have an extensive catalogue of free-to-use music and don't require crediting. The filter on the left-hand side of the page makes it easy to sort things by genre and mood. There's also freebeats.io, which boasts one of the best royalty-free music libraries available for free hip-hop, EDM beats, and rap. Every track featured on their website is at your disposal. You need only follow their socials and give them credit. The man behind these beats is White Hot, a producer from Canada, whose music is often featured on Jimmy Kimmel Live and The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Another alternative is Incompetech. Film and documentary composer Kevin MacLeod is behind this one, with a huge library of free music that'll work really well for those producing a fictional or audio drama podcast. You don't have to seek permission to use these tracks either, but you must give credit. For more options, check out the full article on the Podcast.co website. Getting your wallet out does have its advantages though.
Show me the money.
Namely, choice and quality. With bigger music libraries, it's a lot easier to find exactly what you're looking for. And it means you won't have to settle for a track that's close enough. The audio quality also tends to be better too, as most tracks from paid music services feature professional sounding production. If your plan is to use lots of different backing tracks and sound effects in your episode, it's actually a lot cheaper and easier to use a subscription service. By paying a monthly fee, you'll enjoy access to an entire library of tracks, which you can mix and match in any way you want. If, however, you're only looking for a single track to use, perhaps as a theme for your podcast, you're probably better off finding a track you really like and making a one-time purchase. This also enables you to use that song in whatever way you choose for your podcast for however many years you make it last. And to help steer you in that right direction, we've got a few suggestions on the best subscription and pay-per-track music libraries for podcasts. MusicBed was originally founded in 2011, and since its inception, it's long been a leader in the premium music market, complete with an enviable roster of artists and a very accessible interface. It's one of the largest paid-for libraries out there, offering unlimited access to every track in its extensive archive. Soundstripe may have a smaller music library than MusicBed, but then it hasn't been around as long. However, its pricing plans work out cheaper. Their curated playlists cater for every mood and project, such as advertising or radio. It's also remarkably easy to find the right tracks, thanks to the careful and logical curation. We'd also recommend Epidemic Sound, which boasts a library of over 30,000 tracks and more than 60,000 sound effects, and counting. The well-designed search functionality makes it a breeze to find what you need. And there's the option of downloading specific portions of a track, which is a godsend for getting the right music fade at exactly the right time. $15 a month gives you access to that massive library of tracks, but there's also a 30-day free trial which gives you wiggle room to experiment and see if this one's the right service for you. For more information on pricing for the subscription services we've mentioned, check out our full article where you'll also find other alternatives. That's it from us. Now it's time for you to face the music.